Big news in Toronto was the jury yesterday charged, and I believe the jury was in between a rock and a hard place. A police officer who emptied his gun on a young man who was no threat. The video speaks for itself. You can't eye that doesn't see his heart that doesn't hurt. But in this fucking case, you can see everything. He emptied his gun. He was an angry, over-aggressive officer. They charged him with attempted murder, which is a little bit of an oxymoron because he killed a kid. But I believe that the jury was torn between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, they wanted to give justice to the young man who died at the hands of the aggressive, angry cop, and in the other hand, I believe that they tried to respect the police that have a very tough job and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, try to keep our society safe. Any thoughts from you, Eric Cohen?
Well, I personally don't know how you could be guilty of attempting to murder someone that you actually did kill, as you did say off the top. I don't recall the last time I've ever seen that, so obviously there was some sort of a deal made here. It's hard. It really is hard. I do have a few friends that are on the police force, and I know what they deal with.
You can't make a deal with the jury.
What's that?
You cannot make a deal with the jury. You can make a deal if you have a crown, which in American version it's a district attorney, which represents the people. Here the people represent the people. Your peers are the jury, so there was no deal made. This is something that the jury themselves decided.
Well, and Frank, have they sentenced yet?
No, the judge got a sentence. An attempted murder is minimum 4 years in this country. Yeah. So minimum it's 4 years, and then that's after that.
I guess what happened was the prosecution decided to split the total of the 9 shots that the constable fired, which is where they came up with the attempted murder. I don't really understand how that's possible. I wasn't in the courtroom, obviously, but I've never seen it before. I've never seen attempted murder on someone that was killed by that person. So something obviously, I guess not a deal, but there was obviously some sort of an issue where, the jury was trying to, as you say, get justice for the guy that died, but also not completely throw the book at the officer who was guilty of it.
In most of these cases, as you both are well aware, in most of these cases, you have, a huge amount of leniency towards an officer of the law.
Right.
Always, right? They try to look at it through the eyes of an officer. I think this is the first time, and I think that the police is really trying to show the public that they want to be accountable, right? And that's why, he was tried by a jury.
Yeah.
And, do I agree with the sentence? I mean, do I agree with the verdict? I believe he should have been charged with second-degree murder. That's my version. That's the way I look at it. Second-degree murder, and there was no absolutely. We don't want to flog this to death. There was absolutely no reason for that young man to die. There was no reason.
Well, and like I said, there were 9 shots fired too, so it was very excessive.
Well, he was angry. The young guy got him very pissed off. You can tell that this guy has a very intense personality. He yesterday when he was walking from the courtroom into the waiting car, you could tell that he was holding back with some of the questions and some of what people were yelling at him. Somebody was yelling at him, how does it feel to murder somebody? Right. You could tell that he was very intense and that he was very close to exploding, but he held his own. He held his tongue, he put his ABS brakes on his mouth and just walked into the vehicle. But you could tell that this guy is very intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that that's what set him off. I believe that he, in my version, if I was to write a script on this, I believe that he feels that if he's a police officer and he gives a command or an order, whatever terminology you want to use, you need to follow it immediately. And if you don't, you're going to deal with the circumstances. And that's what's really happening all over North America. You know that, Billy. You said that a long time ago. A long time ago, you said when we've talked about stuff that's gone on in the States, if an officer tells you to do something, shut up and do it, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah, that was the thing. He, as I recall, Frank, I didn't follow the evidence nearly as well from down here as I did when I was up north. But he did tell him to drop the knife, and he did threaten people with the knife in.
Oh yeah, but there was a pen knife, and the place was surrounded, and no other police officer had the gun drawn. Nobody felt in imminent danger. I believe, and I've said this 1,000 fucking times, and I believe again, he was the wrong guy to handle the situation. He was the first officer on the scene. What should have happened? There should have been somebody who was trained to speak to people, and I can guarantee you $1 million. I put my life on it. If the right person came and said to the kids, look, you've had your fun, let's put the knife down, let's go have a beer and talk about it, that's what the kid would have done. And
I don't
you have an
disagree.
officer telling him, put the fucking knife down now! Put the fucking knife down now! And the kid's saying, suck my dick. And the cops getting even more pissed off, and the kid's getting more, because I believe in the kid's head, he never imagined he was going to be shot to death.
No.
It was too bad. I think there were other extenuating circumstances too, and I'd heard stories that I won't repeat about the accused officer, and he may have been in a rage.
Well, there's lots of innuendo that this guy's take steroids. I don't know. That's the shit that's out there. I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is they had a trial. He was judged by his peers, and I respect that system in a democratic country. They charged him with attempted murder. It's a serious crime under the criminal code. Serious crime whether you're a police officer or not, and being a police officer and going to prison is not a nice environment.
No, it's not. And basically what the jury said was, the first couple shots that he fired, if that would have been it, he would have probably got off. It was what happened the 5 seconds later when the kid obviously was chance of doing anything. And then
the kid was on the ground and he
got him in the hot water.
Over on him. He was on the ground. He was finished. Let me give you an example, and you guys got to try to understand. There was something that happened last year in the United States where there was 8-9 police officers, cop cars. They had surrounded a house with bank robbers, and hopefully our guys can find it. And it was very intense. There was a standoff. It was an hour and a half, the standoff, and the bank robbers were held in the house. They were held off in the house. They were, they were using the house to stupid, fucking, you're gonna die, with the police officers, right? And they were armed and dangerous. So some guy comes around with his car. He's got a Rottweiler, and he starts egging on the cops. And he pulls out his phone, fucking worst invention in the world, and starts filming the cops, right?
Yeah.
This is a crime scene. I know it is the right of every citizen in North America for them to walk any street that they want, right? And to film. They can film the police. You can do that, right? But not at a crime scene. It's in there. You can take a look at the rules. You cannot tamper with a fucking crime scene. It's a criminal offense. So in my view, he was tampering with a crime scene. Anyways, the cops arrest him. He had put the Rottweiler inside his car. The Rottweiler, seeing his owner, because the dogs are very loyal, sees this, jumps out, and the police officer, it's there in video, tries to reach for the leash to contain the dog. But when the dog jumped up, the police officer shot him. I would have done that. Right. You would have done that, Eric. Everybody would have done that. My point of the story is that the cop shot him twice. Not 9 times.
Right.
And the cop was in danger of Rottweiler. You don't fuck with a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
Twice!
You could definitely see that with
proximity of the Rottweiler. Twice! He didn't empty his gun. His adrenaline must have been going.
Mm-hmm.
You understand my analogy here, guys?
I totally get it, and that's why I don't believe the self-defense can be possibly used when you fire 9 times. Once you fire a couple times, you're no longer in danger.
No fucking self-defense here.
That's what I'm saying. Absolutely.
Pissed them off.